Nathan Baird from cleveland.com here after Ohio State's 42-35 victory over Indiana at Ohio Stadium. We are grading Justin Fields as we do after every game, and after every game this season, he's gotten an A. He's been fantastic. He's gotten a high A. He's kind of almost ruined the curve in some ways for the other quarterbacks that might be getting graded around college football. And today I'm going to go C-, which I think some fans out there would probably even wonder if that's a little bit generous. But I think you got to look at the whole picture. This was, I think, his toughest day as a quarterback, or worst day as a quarterback for Ohio State, I think you would say in some ways. Now, Indiana did bring a lot of pressure. He told us earlier this week that Indiana brings pressure from a lot of angles, and he watched on film, as a lot of other quarterbacks struggled with that. They get panicked. They would make bad decisions. They would get rushed. They would throw balls that were not supposed to, and he did a lot of those same things today, frankly. It was 18 of 30. This is a guy who was completing 90% of his clean pocket passes coming into this game. But he rarely had a clean pocket. Indiana was moving him around a lot. So 18 of 30, 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, took 5 sacks, 78 rushing yards, and another touchdown. And those 3 interceptions, he had thrown 3 in his entire Buckeye career coming into this game. So the first 17 games of his career, he'd thrown 3 interceptions. First 13 games last year, only threw 1, and throwing 3 today. And at one point in this game, I think he was like 3 of 8, had thrown a couple picks. So they really got to him early, really got in his head, and he didn't respond to it that well. I thought as the game went on, though, I thought you saw him adjust to that a little bit. I thought he played better. I thought he played with more poise. He kept finding Garrett Wilson. He kept finding Chris Olave. Those are obviously the guys that he can rely on, but also started using his legs more. There were a couple of instances where at other times in the game when he was in the grasp or was about to get sacked, he made some bad decisions, and that resulted in at least one of his interceptions that I can remember, if not 2. Later in the game, though, he escaped some of those situations and then just kept it and turned them into some long gains that helped change this game or helped Ohio State ultimately win this game. So this is a game that I think he can learn from. I think it's a game that can benefit Ohio State in a lot of ways, but it was also a game where because of the interceptions, this game ended up being closer than it probably would have been.
Hey, this is Stephen Means outside of Ohio Stadium, and yeah, I agree with Nathan. I'm also going to give Justin Fields a C, and I'm going to give him a C. What raises it is the fact that he started running in the second half. I think in that first half he tried to force some things, and he knows he tried to force some things by the way he answered questions when we got a chance to talk to him after the game. His 3 interceptions were bad. The first one, actually, I'm going to applaud Indiana. That was a great defensive scheme. They kind of baited him into throwing that ball to Garrett Wilson when he should have just taken the dig underneath. But the other 2, one he tried to throw away, but he couldn't get all the way there because Indiana continued to get pressure. And then the second one, even going back and looking at it, it looks even worse. He's already being sacked, getting pulled backwards, and he thinks he can get the ball to Julian Fleming, and he can't get it there. So thank goodness Julian Fleming ended up making a play there to give Ohio State the ball back. But there are some times where when you saw a blitz, if there was nothing there, you have to take off, especially when you're Justin Fields and your legs are the ultimate cheat code. And he didn't start using them until the second half, and really he hasn't used them since the Nebraska game where he had like 58 yards on 15 rushes. Today he took off more and used his legs, and he ended up with 78 yards and a touchdown. And when we get into the playoff, or as they get maybe Big Ten championship game if they get Wisconsin, he's probably going to have to use his legs at some point. Yes, you want him to stand back there and use his arm and throw it to Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, and even if the tight ends, and if some of these other freshman wide receivers start to get involved more. But also, his legs are a cheat code, and he hasn't been able to use them. Today he had to use them in the second half, and they ended up paying off, and that's why they won this game.